Hi guys, I'm Adam Steele from The Hot Pole. Now, recently I've been talking a lot about guitar reamping and kind of what you can achieve with it, but what I've not really talked about is how to do it step by step. So, right from the start, we're going to talk about and walk through how to do it with absolutely no cost to you, apart from the guitar and the interface, which you should already have. So for the purposes of reamping guitars for whatever it is you want to do, you're going to need a computer. I've brought my laptop in to show you don't need a big studio computer to do it. You'll need an audio interface. I've got my RME Babyface. And you'll need your trusty guitar. So, this is how we begin, is that I've used my DAW of choice, which is Reaper. I think Reaper's great. You can use Logic, Pro Tools, Cubase, whatever you prefer. But this principle should be the same every time. So I've started by plugging my headphones into my interface and making sure that sound's coming out. It's fairly obvious. Make sure you're getting noise. And I've plugged my guitar straight into the instrument input, which in this case is channel 2. And it's different for every interface. Just make sure you check which channel you're going into. And I've gone straight into Reaper. I already have a drum track made, which is just this. It's just nothing crazy, just but. You can record with a click track. I prefer some sort of drums to give me a rhythm. Now, when you hit record on a channel and set the input to it's input 2, for instance, or whichever one it is that your guitar is, you'll know straight away, because when you make any guitar noise with the volume up, the meters will start going, click, 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 and you'll see it on screen. You'll get levels going up and down. But we can't hear anything. I'm going to stick the headphones on at this point. So there's no sound coming out at all, but we can see it. So what we need to do for reamping is we need to live monitor. Now there is a button in Reaper for record monitoring. I'm sure there's one in Logic. I know there's one in Cubase and Pro Tools. So we can now hear it coming through. Now this is the sound of a raw guitar with no amplifier, no nothing. So it sounds awful, doesn't it? Sounds like kind of farting from ducks. That wah wah wah. So we can't track with this. I mean, how are you going to know it's going to sound brutal? Now, this is what I do. You can do loads of different things, but if you've paid for your laptop, you've paid for your guitar, you've paid for your interface, if you say a 14-year-old starting out, you can't really afford any more than that, right? You can't be saving up for the top of the line stuff. So what I do is I use a free virtual guitar amp and a free virtual cab. And they sound exactly what I need to write and record with, not to get the final tone. Now, what we've been talking about with reamping up to this point is that it's intended to not be used in the end. This, apart from the raw, this signal is what we're going to send to the engineer at the end. So the engineer's going to get this horrible quacky sound. But we need something to track with. So there's a guy called Lepou, like Lepou, French guy called Lepou, and he makes these amazing versions of guitar amplifiers. Now I'm going to try and record something heavy, so he's made one called Lecto, which is a recto dual rectifier. It's a copy of a Mesa amp. Now if I turn this on with all the settings pretty much standard, we should get a really heavy sound, but it'll sound awful. Now the reason for that is not the fault of the designer, it's not the fault of the amp. The reason it sounds awful is that whenever you see a guitar amp, you hear it going through the cabinet, you hear it through a microphone, or at least in the room through the cabinet. This is an emulation of just the head, which is So what we need is a guitar cabinet. Now, 2 Notes, the company, also from France. France seem to be really killing it with this stuff at the moment. They have made a plugin called Wall of Sound. Now this is great. Now it comes free with their Marshall 4x12 cab emulation. They do loads of different ones, and if you want the different ones, you can pay for them. I think about €8 or something like that, which, you know, so £7 or $10, give or take. Not that much really, but I've always been impressed with the Marshall cab. So straight away with the SM57 setting, which is what most engineers use, we get something pretty usable. Now that sounds great. In a mix though, it will sound a little bit fuzzy, a little bit flat, but that's not a problem. The problem that you think you see there is one that doesn't matter, because you're never going to use this if you're going to reamp your guitars anyway. This is just a bass level something so that you can think. Now let's try hitting the record button and just recording something with the drums. So there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sounds pretty good. Now if I play that back. 2, 3, 4. Sounds alright. I mean, if I turn off the amp now, we will hear this quacking sound again. Now I've made sure that my levels are right going in, so if you look at the screen quickly, you can see how my levels are kind of loud but nowhere near the top. That's ideally the kind of level you want to be sending in, which means that it's not going to go with distortion. But it's not so quiet that when you turn it back up afterwards, you've got a snowstorm of white noise. Now, the very last thing, if you're young and you've not really done this before, is that once you've written a guitar part like this, if you want it to sound big and chunky as a rhythm part, you need to record it twice, one for each side. Now, there's an easy way of doing this in Reaper, and I think you can do this in other DAWs, is if I right-click on the channel and duplicate it, then this is in here twice now. So we've got Guitar 1 and Guitar 1, which I'm going to rename Guitar 2. I'm going to make sure Guitar 2's on record, and hard pan them left and right. Now I'm going to delete the guitar part out of the new channel, and we're going to play a second one. And people say to me, oh, can't you just copy and paste it left and right? You can, but it just ends up combining them into mono again, because your ears hear the same thing at the same time and your brain puts it together as mono. So if you want that big sound, you have to record it twice. Which is part of the reason why reamping is great, because you can do this at home and you can do it 100 times until you're perfectly happy with them being spot on, so that when you bring them into the studio, you don't have to spend all that time getting them absolutely bang on. So let's try and just record what I was doing a second time. And a 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that sounded absolutely awful because I forgot to turn my amp back on. Let's just see how that did if I turn back on the effects. Not bad. Now, I'm pretty sure if I went back and really looked at how to get those tight, I could get them a lot tighter. I mean, I was making that up as I went along, so it's not as if I've had any time to sit down and learn it. But if I was to say, right, that's part of my track now, let's learn it, let's double track it, I can then go back and do them till they're perfect, turn the effects off, send them to the mix engineer to make them sound like an absolute beast in one go. Now, if you've got any questions about this, feel free to send me a message on AskFM, or through our Twitter, which is Hot Pulse Studios, or comments in the section below. I'll be happy to answer anything you've got. I'm Adam Steele. Thanks for watching.